In the spring of 2020, the physical economy ground to an absolute halt. City streets emptied out, small businesses boarded their doors, and normal commerce effectively froze. But if you looked at a financial ticker, you saw a completely different reality. This dual-axis chart illustrates that exact contradiction. On one side, we see an immediate vertical spike in unemployment claims as millions of people lost their jobs. But right over it, we see the stock market experiencing its fastest 50-day increase in history. To understand how a market can boom while an economy collapses, we have to trace where the money to fund that recovery actually came from. Specifically, we have to look at the Federal Reserve and its massive injections of fresh liquidity. New money doesn't fall from the sky evenly across the country. It enters the economy at very specific institutional centers. When the central bank creates trillions of dollars, that currency flows directly into the hands of primary dealers and large financial institutions, the physical and digital residents of Wall Street. What we saw in 2020 highlights a structural bias built directly into our monetary system. The engineering we use to distribute new currency naturally prioritizes financial asset markets over everyday households. This mechanism isn't a modern glitch. In the early 1700s, an Irish-French banker named Richard Cantillon watched the French economy unravel during the Mississippi bubble. He paid close attention to exactly how the state's newly created paper money moved through society. Cantillon noticed a pattern that we still live with today. He realized that the total amount of money printed is only half the equation. What really dictates economic winners and losers is who gets to hold and spend that new money first. He documented how gold miners and well-connected merchants experienced a sudden windfall. They received the newly minted currency early and bought up resources while prices across the rest of the economy were still low. Meanwhile, laborers and farmers, whose wages lagged behind, were eventually forced to pay higher prices for basic goods. Cantillon understood this sequence so well that he used it to speculate against the rapidly inflating French currency. He amassed a massive personal fortune, profiting from the exact same monetary expansion that drained purchasing power from the general public. Today, we call this the Cantillon Effect. It is a financial law of physics describing how expanding the money supply inherently redistributes wealth, quietly transferring value from the people who receive the money last to the institutions that get it first. When modern central banks decide to stimulate the economy, they do it by creating trillions of dollars out of thin air to purchase assets. The staging ground for this transaction relies on the major exchanges and a highly connected network of primary dealers. These financial institutions operate at the main valve of the economy. They receive massive credit facilities directly or act as middlemen selling government debt from the Treasury back to the central bank. This flowchart demonstrates the VIP advantage. The new money flows straight from the central bank into the accounts of those primary dealers. Because they are the very first receivers, they get to deploy this fresh capital to buy up assets at the old, lower prices before the market adjusts to the massive new money supply. Armed with essentially unlimited zero-interest capital, these institutions bid up the prices of stocks, corporate bonds, and luxury real estate. If you already own a large portfolio of those assets, your net worth immediately skyrockets. Under this architecture, the financial sector functions as the economy's exclusive retailer of liquidity. They take their cut, invest at a steep discount, and they reap the benefits of a booming market well before the newly printed money ever circulates outward. You can think of this distribution like an unfair relay race. The new money is a baton passed from one economic sector to the next, but the first runner is given a massive head start. As the money moves from Wall Street to corporate borrowers, then to suppliers, and eventually down to local businesses and wage earners, time passes. It can take months or even years for that initial injection to physically reach a normal worker's bank account. During that time lag, a shockwave moves through the supply chain. The early spenders bid up the cost of land, energy, and raw materials. By the time those inputs are used to make everyday consumer goods, the baseline cost of living has already ratcheted up. This creates a brutal squeeze on independent businesses. They are forced to pay higher prices for their inventory and supplies immediately, but they lack access to the cheap, newly created credit that massive corporate competitors rely on to weather the storm. In a system built on fiat money, your distance from the printing press predicts your financial security. The further you are down the line, the harder the system works against you. The final destination for all this newly created money is the local grocery store checkout counter and the neighborhood housing market. This is where the last receivers in the economy finally come into contact with it. When the average person eventually gets a nominal raise or a stimulus check, it feels like a victory. But that new money is now chasing goods in an economy that has already adjusted to the massive injections at the top. This is the hidden tax of the Cantillon Effect. While the number on the paycheck might be higher, the actual purchasing power of those dollars has been drained away, siphoned upstream to the people who got to spend them first. When the credit cycle turns and the boom becomes a bust, the people at the very end of this pipeline are left completely exposed. They face higher daily expenses without the safety net of inflated asset portfolios, leading to the loss of real wealth, like their homes. Inflation is not a mysterious accident or an unpredictable force of nature. It is the mechanical result of a system engineered to allocate resources. It makes the wealthy wealthier and the poor poorer by design, leaving us all to ask one simple question: who got to spend your money before you did?